And welcome to another episode of Mostly Satisfactory, where I, through trial and error and a lot of painful mistakes, I make my way through this gorgeous automation-themed game, and I learned quite a few things along the way. In the last episode, we finally finished the first stage of power production at the new base. And now it's a matter of moving production from the old base to this base. And quite frankly, there's a couple different schools of thought on this, and I'm not quite sure how to proceed. So one school of thought that I mentioned last time is there's a possibility that I should set up kind of like a generic assembly line, and then as needs change, as my particular errand of the moment changes, I can reconfigure that main assembly line to make whatever it is I need. That's how I would approach this in real life. However, this is not real life, and I'm still very early into this. I can only make a few items, but I see a pattern that hey kiddos, ooh, useful. Encased industrial beam. And what do you have? Okay. Thanks. Well, we can throw this in La Maquina and get some tickets. Cassiola. And there it goes. And it stopped. No power. Ooh, so in the last episode when I rearranged some of my power connections, I apparently forgot to hook this back up. Well, okay, that's easy enough. Might as well make it an inside and outside connection. And then wire that to here. And wire this to here. There we go. Anyway, like I was saying, I would take, you know what, I need another door out of here. You know, a back door and a front door. The front door up to this point hasn't been very convenient either, so of course it is another opportunity for the doggos to escape-o. I think that's all I really need to be carrying with me at the moment. And let's see. We got the coal power. So, well, I've always been a big fan of vehicles. And this looks like stuff I can make pretty easily. In fact, I'm already making some of it. So, we'll go with that. Okay. They're not coming out, are they? Yes, they are. Okay, get your butts back in here. Yeah. All the way in. Set that to always closed. And they're going to run out of this one too. No. So, set this to always closed. And I'll just climb out the top and jump. Anyway, like I was saying, the different ways to approach this. If this was like real life, we would set up a single assembly line and we would change the inputs and thus the outputs as needed depending on what we're making at the moment. But it's not real life. And the recurring pattern I've seen, and just I'm guessing how they're probably going to handle this, is that every time I gotta create something new, I'll probably need to be able to create that or keep creating that forever. So, and there's another side of that too, is I've also noticed that it's sometimes handy to have a handful or more of whatever I'm producing available at any given time, because you have no idea what they're going to ask for next. Like with every time I find one of these hard drives, well, they've been, I found one, but it was hidden in a space that said, well, I had to have certain items to be able to unlock it. So I'm not sure which way to go on this, but what I am sure of is that whatever I produce and however I produce it, I probably need to set up some storage containers, like I am here, to kind of siphon off some of the produce so that I have a reserve of whatever these items are. So whether they are plates or concrete or whatever, hopefully I'll have a full storage containers worth whenever I need them. And then, of course, once this fills up, then all the materials would continue on to wherever else they're going to be used. Now, with all that said, it's time to actually set up these inputs back from that get filled from the nodes that are all the way back at the original base. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to build everything on the planet's grid, and I'm trying to keep things straight and at right angles. But with these conveyor belts, even though you have it on straight mode, it's not always straight. So that's what's going on. And that's really it in a nutshell. Now, when I reach up back to the original base, I've got nodes for iron, limestone, and copper. And I want them to line up here. And in this first container, because of the placement of those nodes back at the main base, kind of, if you look at them from where I'm at now, from left to right would be limestone, copper, and iron. So it kind of makes sense that I line them up that way here. And so this would be the limestone connection. So I don't have any other way to bring stuff here automatically than to use conveyor belts. So I'll go back and I'll set up a there's a limestone node right here. It's I'm pretty sure it's impure, so I mean it's not any better or any worse than the one I already have. So this makes things easier, right? So I'm gonna go take apart the limestone stuff I've got going at the old base, and we'll just move it closer to that closer node. And that will save the conveyor belt heartache I'm about to put myself through. So that's something. I'm really I'm kind of surprised I didn't think of that earlier, but yeah, sometimes I'm so focused on what what it is I'm doing at the moment that I can't see the forest for the trees, so to speak. So we'll just rebuild that stuff here anyway. So we got the miner. And I'm going to line this up. I'm going to face due east. And then line this up so it's exactly perpendicular to my view. I think that's better. So now it'll pump stuff out to my left, which is toward my Amazon warehouse facility. We got to shorten that. So AWF. Okay. This rock is in the way. Builds. What's the problem? Belt's too steep. Belt's too steep. Well, we got to go to a smelter anyway. Might be easier to build if I had a foundation to put it on. I want to try to line up the foundation with the miner. Yeah. And I got to get it to just match the top of that rock. Like that. Right? That's telling me I'm below the level of the miner. And eyeballing this, it looks pretty close. Right? Build some stairs. And this is, oh, I thought it looked straight, but apparently the foundation isn't straight. And now it's trying to snap to the foundation, which shows just how far off I am. See? That's annoying. Huh. Well, doggies. So, I think I'll need a second foundation, at least, to fit the constructor on, because it's a little larger than a single foundation anyway. That looks about right. Right? Of course, it needs to have the inputs and the outputs lined up properly. No, it's not right, because the foundation's off. So lining up the constructor on the foundation is going to make a mess of things here if I keep them close. Now, if I move them out a little bit, I can get the belt to adjust. It seems a lot more difficult than it really needs to be, but that gonna work? Nope, it's not lined up. not lined up. So is this not too close still? Oh, but that works. There. It's not super pretty, but apparently these nodes aren't exactly on the world grid. Or maybe they are and I'm just missing something here. Is there any... Maybe if I'm thinking if I could set up the foundation underneath the miner, as long as it doesn't interfere with the operation of the miner, maybe I could line it up better and then get the rest of the foundations to line up on this foundation. Yeah, but when I bring it down a little bit, you can see this it's just the nodes just aren't on the world grid the same way that foundations connect to it. Just a frustrating fact of life, I guess. I will say that for Factorio, that you don't have this problem, because it's a tile-based game. But, okay. Back to what we were doing before. Yeah, I just wish, oh. Here comes a walking water balloon. WWB. This is probably the straightest conveyor belt I've ever made. Without snapping the foundations. Whoa. I didn't realize I was so close. Oh. Okay, let's, that's too close. Too close. Let's kill off a segment and then turn. Here. Line up with due east. Let's line up with due west. That's south. So if I go here and I line up due west, a little twist at the end. There must be a knack to this that I just don't get yet. Hold on, that's not a right angle. Oh, there we go. So maybe this will work better now. Maybe I can actually get the right angles I've been looking for. This should work much better now. Due east. Still has a tendency to get squirrely right at the end, but this is generally much easier. Okay, that looks better. Not fabulous, just better. And now, of course, before we can get this thing moving, we got to give it juice. Gonna need to make another power pole because the local main line only has one open connection. And there you go. We're now creating concrete, now we're creating concrete, and we're pumping it automatically back to the new base. So now the trick is, like, what is this? Looks like somebody had a campfire or something, but okay. So this should be good. And in fact, I can get some of this out of my inventory now. Yeah. Here it comes. So I'm feeling good. Feeling good about this. Now, these, I got to do the same thing here. But it's different, right? So we're at the copper node. We are gonna keep the miner and the smelter just as we do now, but we're gonna remove the constructor and we're gonna bring copper ingots all the way back to the base, where we will then set up constructors to use them and store them. But we only need one conveyor belt for the copper ingots. If I convert the stuff to, say, copper wire and copper plates at the node, then I'll need to run two conveyors. I'm still getting the hang of this. That was limestone at the top level, so we'll say iron top level, and if I remember, we put in the purity here. And then iron should be a gray. They have a foundation primary. I think it's too dark. So a fairly light gray. Like that. And we can make that into iron. We'll call it the iron color. So let's document the others now that I've established the standard. Huh. Where'd the other icon I made go? Oh. I don't think I saved it last time. So I gotta make the same choices all over again. Except to have a preset color this time. There we go. Okay, just 2 more nodes. So, I mean, everything I've been doing up to this point, this is normal. Okay, so this is the richest of the iron nodes I have available to me. And that's the point, right? Is I'm not even fully maxed out on the iron node I'm using, which is impure. But I have, besides that, 2 more impure and a normal. So, I mean, undoubtedly, because of the way this game works and scales, I'll probably need more iron at some point. But I think for the foreseeable future, we have enough iron available to us. It's just a matter of setting it up to tap into it, and then optimizing that, because that's how these things work, right? You get something going down and dirty, and then from there you start tweaking and optimizing to make it better. Unless you've played this game 450 times already, in which case you probably memorized all the optimization equations in your head. You probably talk about them in your sleep, and so you could probably just generate stuff the correct way or the most efficient way right up front. But I'm not there yet. Clearly. Okay. So I don't need to move this yet. But we will need to retool this. And this isn't working because it's already at 50. Of course, I don't know why we're not creating more stuff. Oh, yes we are. So let me take this. And turn it off. And then, because, you know, I need iron plates. And these guys are somehow using them more efficiently than they used to be. I don't know how that works because I didn't make any changes, but okay. Need a lot of plates for these conveyors, man. So, see, the mine and the smelter are pretty much fine. In fact, I think they're already lined up, right? Running east-west. But the constructor's got to go. Not quite lined up right. Very close, though. So line this up with the output going to my left or west, and I'm lined up facing due north. So now we just rotate this a little more, and not quite. Oh, I think that's it. Okay, so that's running truly east-west. And I think this pole's in the way. In fact, all the poles are a little inefficient at this point. So let's just clear this up a little bit. So we get rid of this and that. Okay, now we have the smelter. Oh. So, if you hold down the left control, there's a snap mode. And I guess that lines it up automatically. Sort of. It looks like it just lines it up horizontally, but not vertically. Is that too close? Guess not. Oh, guess so. Okay, so that was the right idea. Just give them a little breathing room. 6 inches of daylight between dance partners here. There we go. That's lined up. And that means conveyor belt should work just fine. Seriously, you guys are killing me here. How can that be an invalid shape? I can't explain it. Okay, now we'll run the conveyors using straight mode. That should improve, well, lessen the frustration factor somewhat. Okay. Now I should be able to come I was going to say come down off the hill, but this is kind of messy. Okay, now we can go across this little dry gully. Or not. You know, now that I think about it, when I was running that pipeline, I had much greater success keeping things organized and relatively straight by using the supports and then running the pipe to the supports. So with that said, maybe the way to go about that with the conveyor belts is essentially do the same thing. You know, it's telling me when the supports are lined up. And then I can just connect the belts. Yes, I think this works much better. I can see it's not quite exact though. But, you know, I'll settle for better. Yeah, it's a challenge because when I was looking at starting this game, and in fact when I started Factoria, I'm reading up on it and I'm watching videos, and the term spaghetti comes up a lot. I mean, a lot. And I read it and I grasped what the deal was in my head. I understood it, shook my head. But, here I am trying to line this up, making it look neat. And this brings this spaghetti term home in a way, in a totally new way. It's tangible. I mean, it is really tangible. But this is the challenge. Now, we're researching vehicles, so presumably with vehicles, I could ditch the whole, cross-country conveyor belts, in theory, right? Because, these right angles are tough. And there we go. This whole view is totally disconcerting. Is this rock going to be a problem? So, yeah, I'm on the verge of saying, forget it. Just run this however I want, cross country. I can totally understand why people stick with spaghetti. But I also know, I I know from the bottom of my heart that if I go that route, I'm just gonna wind up redoing it anyway, right? It's gonna bug the living daylights out of me, and eventually I'm gonna have to redo it. So I know me. This is my problem. I get it. So now presumably there's a way to get rid of things like rocks and stuff. And we've during the Fixmas event we got some. Why can't you just make it run the other way? Oh, bother. See? I mean... I thought this thing would adjust. Missing materials. Anyway, yeah, so this is the trick. I mean, it's always the trick of any economy, right? The transport of materials is a key element. I mean, it's hard to remember that now because we live in an age of globalization. So probably 90% of everything in your house, if it was made the past 40 years, was made in China, or parts or materials from China. And unless you're watching this from China, that's for most of us on the other side of the world, right? So, yeah, it's just not going to adjust, is it? Nope. So I'll just have to run it the way it's supposed, in the direction it's supposed to go. It doesn't adjust. Anyway. We live in an era of globalization, so, your stuff comes probably from another country. And that's kind of mind-blowing, right? I mean, we're not just talking about, like, fancy stuff. We're talking about day-to-day stuff. At some point, the economics... worked out such that it was more cost effective to cart whatever it is to you from a time zone away or 11 time zones away. It was more cost effective to do that. Now, why is this? This is where I'm supposed to go. This is the direction. It would work going the other direction, but it won't line up this direction. It says conveyor belts in the way. Whoa. So let's see if it connects two belts like this. If that doesn't... No. Conveyor belts... You could run it the other way and it wasn't... Same stands. Same supports. But now this is too steep. Give me a break. Okay. So to that point, we are separate in in time and space from, our ancestors in the past. And what I'm getting at is this. for us nowadays, transport of stuff is no big deal. But that used to be a huge deal. Line this up again. So, my point's this, right? If you stop and think about it, most of us have had birthday parties. Like when we were kids, we had birthday cake, right? Or at Christmas time, we've had like gingerbread. Well, just gingerbread, or made gingerbread houses or cookies or whatever. And the thing to remember is, for us nowadays, you can just go to the store and you can go to the spice aisle and, you can pick up all these spices. And I know for a fact none of them grow in my neighborhood, right? A lot, there's stuff from Asia and Africa and Europe and South America. But the point is like, once upon a time, access to those types of spices was only available to the richest of the rich. Because to get your, if you're living in England and you want access to some spice that's grown in say, China, and the year is like, 1500 something, well, gosh, there's no trains, there's no freeways, there are ships, but, to get a ship to England from Asia, you had to go all the way around Africa. So you're talking about months on a ship or months cross country being carried by camels or horses or people. So this, we get a container of cinnamon or allspice or nutmeg or whatever, and it's a few bucks. But that same amount of spices was like more money than most people would make in a year or two, right? For a little bit of spice. And I mean, I saw a Facebook meme that really kind of summed it up. It says, you want to, the question comes up, like, what would our ancestors think if they saw this today and it shows an iPhone? And it's like, nothing. They couldn't grasp what it is they're looking at or what it means or whatever. You want to blow their mind, right? You take somebody in a time machine, bring them forward 600, 700 years, and then you show them your spice cabinet in your kitchen, and that will blow their mind. And that's all because of the difficulties of logistics. But in a globalized world, right? Put it another way. When I was a kid, and I know we're talking about ancient history, right? Because I was born in the late 60s, and that, well, to me, that doesn't necessarily seem to be such a long time ago. When I stop and look at Wikipedia or something, I realize it was a long time ago. But my point was, I remember when we, as a kid, when we went to the grocery store, there was just, you go to the grocery store. Oh, I need more plates. Now, you go to the grocery, you want strawberries? You can get strawberries any day of the year. And if you want cherries or this or that, for the most part, you can get them any day of the year. Sometimes a little more expensive, but if you look, they're being grown in some far part of the world. And that's my point, is we live in a world where it's so cheap and easy, in relative terms, to cart stuff around the globe that we can get strawberries any time of year because they're being grown all around the world and being shipped to us throughout the year, right? It just depends on what time of the year it is, depends on where you're getting them from. Because don't forget, the northern hemisphere is in winter when the southern hemisphere is in summer, and vice versa. So that is just mind-boggling. Because when I was a kid, strawberries came to the store, they were there for 2 weeks, then they're gone. And so And only things like, say, apples, pears, carrots, lettuce, you could get those year round. But even then, that's because it's not because apples were being grown wherever year round, but rather because some things like apples and pears, mostly apples, they could put it into a cold storage, right? That's when they'd wax fruit, which would essentially seal the fruit from outside air, and then they would take the crates of the fruit and they'd put it in special cold storage, right, where they'd limit access to air and stuff. And at that point, you could keep an apple, quote unquote, fresh for a year. So that, apples tend to become ripe in the late summer and fall, and yet here it was early summer and you're still getting what appear to be fresh apples. But those apples have been actually picked and sitting in cold storage for months and months and months. But that was the exception, right? All this other stuff, you had to wait for the right season. And this is what globalization has enabled for us. I mean, growing up in this world as it is, a lot of people don't realize just how things have changed for us. Which brings us back to here, right? Moving stuff from one part of the map to another is a pain. It is a pain because so why is this? That's lined up. So I just realized something. Well, besides the fact that they don't line up. Okay, then that lines up. But, it lines up in terms of alignment. It doesn't line up in terms of inputs and outputs. So, there you go. That's probably going to be more effective for my purposes. So, we're coming from copper, and I want to split the production into wire, copper wire, and copper sheeting. But before we split the production, we're gonna need to manufacture, and that's what we're talking about. Before we do that construction, we're gonna need to split the input. I have one conveyor with copper ingots coming in, and I need to put a splitter right between these two. Oh. So sometimes I'm really thankful that your guy's so nimble. Your avatar in this game is so nimble and can bounce around. Sometimes it is a royal pain in the butt. Okay, so there's a splitter, and I should be able to line these up in straight mode without any problem. Assuming I can stay on the platform. Okay. This is good. And unless you take an economics course, you probably don't even realize what a huge change easy transportation makes. You can certainly see what a huge change we had and how much problems it cost during the pandemic, right? When, supplies and ships and stuff were not readily available. And so, stuff got gummed up in the ports or wherever, and then you had factories that were not able to produce. And why is that? Because in the old days, if you were making widgets and your widgets used like steel or washers or screws, what you usually did is you stockpiled on those things, so you had enough of those widgets, enough of those supplies to make your widgets, so that if something happened, you could still keep producing, for a month or 2 months or even a year, worst case scenario. That, because, things, it was hard to get stuff. It took time to get stuff, so you always had a reserve of stuff. But now, like I'm saying, we live in a world where the transportation of material is, and I know you might doubt this, but it is so cheap, efficient, and reliable. And I know that package from Amazon you were expecting didn't come, and so you're doubting me, but we're talking relative terms, right? Compared to, again, the proverbial old days, that a lot of companies went to what they call just-in-time manufacturing, just-in-time logistics or whatever, right? I mean, the point was that the stuff they had on hand, the reserve, would keep them going for a day or two, but new supplies would come in and they would be used pretty much right away. You didn't have your materials stockpiled for months or years. And why would they do that? Well, think about this. If you have to stockpile a bunch of stuff before you use it, just in case, that stuff takes up space, right? So you're going to need space in your manufacturing space or near your manufacturing space to store that stuff. And storing that stuff, depending on the requirements, that costs money, right? Out of plates again. So to have stuff, you're going to have to have security guards, and maybe this stuff requires, special environmental conditions or whatever, so it doesn't go bad or rust or whatever. That costs money. The other side of it too is nobody's going to let you stockpile a bunch of stuff on credit, right? You're going to pay for all those supplies up front, which means that you paid for it, and obviously that stuff has value, and it's sitting in a garage or a warehouse or something, and while it's doing that, your money you paid for that is now locked up, right? Actually, I need to make a separate poll and then feed the smelter and the miner from the same pole. So, because this one's full now. So, all those supplies represents money that you now have invested, but you can't do anything with it unless you sell those supplies. And the whole point is you're not in the business to sell supplies. You're in the business of doing something with those supplies, which you then sell. And that's where you make your money. So, this whole logistics thing, it is a major piece of it. I mean, one could argue that that's probably the most important element of all this, right? Figuring out a factory floor where, material A goes into machine A, comes out as material B, and material B is then moved to machine B. That is an interesting exercise in logic, and there's all sorts of optimizations around it. But the big challenge throughout history has been to get material from point A, where they produce it or store it or find it, to point B, where they need it, and then eventually to point C, where they'll consume it. So, and that's why there are whole game genres, in fact, devoted to that. Like the whole railroad tycoon, transport tycoon, transport fever, train fever, all that stuff, right? That is a major piece of this whole economic puzzle all by itself. And so here we are playing mostly Satisfactory. Get back to what we're talking about. And that's now my biggest headache, is getting the stuff from where it is to where I need it to be, so that I can then do the wall-to-wall automation that this game's all about. Man, these conveyor belts are so much straighter now that I'm doing this whole support and thing first. It's just So much better. Line up west. Line this up. No. There we go. Okay. We're getting there. Almost there. You know, the transport of goods is... So you can see how it's critical to your economy, but it's also, in some ways, it's like a weak point, right? If you don't get your raw materials, then you can't make your stuff. I mean, one of the things about World War II is Japan itself is that, I mean, it's got all sorts of natural resources, but iron's not one of them, and so, nor is gasoline. So industrialized Japan didn't have this stuff. It made deals with countries like the United States to get things like steel and iron. But when they decided that they were going to go to town and start, taking over other countries they focused on were countries that had these resources that they couldn't produce themselves. And where I was headed with this is the idea of blockading countries for materials or whatever to hurt them. That's ancient. I mean, it goes all the way back to sieges. This pole's inconveniently located. But, you deny people the materials they need, the food they need, the whatever they need, and you have leverage over them. So things like naval blockades and stuff, that strategy's older than the hills. Or as old as the hills. I know, I was there. So get this connect, and then we gotta move this power pole. Because, I'm as compulsive as all get out, so having a power pole smack dab in the middle of a conveyor is not gonna work. Now, on a related topic, and is this, right? If we live in an era where we're talking about climate change and fuel conservation and stuff, the question then comes, do we really need to be shipping like super, super cheap stuff from one side of the world to the other? Right? Because, yeah, we can do it cheaply and efficiently, but in the end, those things go on really massive cargo ships, which use a massive amount of fuel and create a massive amount of pollution. And so if we weren't shipping the little tiny cheapy widgets from one side of the planet to the other, but rather making them where people need them in the first place, we could save all that energy or whatever. And that's going to be an argument for economists, right? I mean, from the economic standpoint, we have a thing called economies of scale, and that is a major factor in reducing costs and improving efficiency, right? And to give you an idea about that is, let's say we I don't want to import my cars from wherever. I want to make my car right here so that I don't have to import it. Okay. So let's build a car plant right here in my backyard. What do you got for me, kiddo? That's a PowerPoint. Can you come down, please? Anytime. Come here. Okay, that works. So, these numbers are made up, but they work, right? So let's say we want to make a car manufacturing facility, and so it costs $100 million. So we build a plant for $100 million. Now, to make one car, it's going to be like, say, $5,000 in materials. So let's get them going. We can put in the ingots to start. So $5,000 in materials, I make a $30,000 car. Okay. But I built $100 million factory. So for $100 million plus $5,000, I produced one car. So that car is worth normally $15,000 plus the price of the factory. So it's $100 million plus $15,000 for one car. That's not super efficient, right? So what happens, though, is the more cars we make out of this factory, the cheaper that added cost is. So let's say we build that factory and we, over the course of time, we run 100 million cars through that factory. Well, now the added cost of the factory on the car, it would be $5,000 for materials plus $1 for the factory, because now if you take 100 million cars divided by $100 million we spent in the factory, it's $1 each, and boom, now you the economy of scale works out. So since you've got a factory that is producing, what is the problem? Oh, well, I need iron plates, but let's see. I don't want to block the road, but I think I need to block my road. Anyway, gotta get the plates. So then, now that you've built your factory for $100 million, you tend to not wanting to build another factory, right? So since your factory is wherever it is, if conditions change, like you need a new material or your old source of materials is dried up, now you gotta figure out a way to bring those materials to your existing factory, because you really don't want to build another one. But sometimes you got to, right? Because somebody's penned out the math saying, well, if we build a new factory, say in Germany, which is perhaps closer to where these people are wanting to drive these cars, and our supplies that we're using are in Germany, well, then it just makes sense to spend another $100 million and build the factory over there, though. But it's this complex dance. And then on top of it, there's all these other considerations, right? Things like tariffs and stuff. I mean, if you're trying to ship cars from the United States to Germany, or better yet, if you're trying to ship cars from Canada to the United States and we slap on a 25% tariff on those Canadian cars, well, Americans in the United States trying to buy these Canadian-built cars are going to wind up paying 25% more for that car. And now that car is going to be less desirable, right? As opposed to the car completely made in the United States, which presumably doesn't have any tariffs, so it doesn't have the 25% markup. The problem is, in this case, we live in a globalized economy, and for 40 years, the United States, Canada, and Mexico have been part of NAFTA, a North American Free Trade Agreement, which essentially made it one big free trade zone. And so manufacturers took full advantage of that, right? So cars and parts and all, they're made all over the place in North America, going back and forth between Canada and Mexico. So if you throw up these tariffs now, and you say, well, now it's going to be more economically viable to build everything in the United States, that makes a certain level of sense on paper, I guess, but here's the problem. When I said you would create a factory for $100 million or whatever, it's not like a game. It's not like, I sit down here for an hour, I'll build some foundations, I'll throw down some stuff, and there we are. By the end of the day, we got something up and running. No. When you go to build anything, right, but especially something as complex as a factory, you're going to go and have to find land and purchase land or lease the land. Then you're going to have to also work with architects and designers to lay out the structure, the building, what's going to go in it. And even if there's already a building there, maybe you can reuse part of it, but it's going to require extensive renovations. So there's a whole bunch of that planning and work And then they're going to have to actually do the building on top of the fact that we live in a time where there's got to be environmental impact studies and stuff. Now, maybe that'll go away, but at the moment, that's still in place, and that takes months or years. So you're talking about probably a non-trivial amount of time to study the situation, a non-trivial amount of... Can you not connect these? Oh, I guess you can. A non-trivial amount of time to, do the preparation for the site, the planning, years in designing the factory, building the factory. Then you got to hire and train the people who work in the factory. You have to set up the contracts for the logistics of the parts and stuff to get there. The logistics for taking your end product and getting it to where it needs to be. Maybe they need to build rail lines or whatever out to the factory and out to the trunk line of the railroad. Blah, 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 blah. So my point's this. You slap somebody with tariffs today, and that's easy to do. You say at midnight tariffs happened. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to get people to start building stuff in country A, in this case probably the United States. That's great, but it's going to take years for manufacturers in the United States to be able to take advantage of that. So what you're going to have is you're going to have the situation where the tariffs are making cars more expensive, but there's no real clear alternative for a while. So I've come to the realization that I've kind of screwed up. Not the first time, won't be the last time, but here's the deal, right? So I've got the copper coming in, and I'm making wire, and I'm making copper sheeting. Yay for me. But what I need to do is I also need to consider that I need to automate the creation of cable. So I'm looking at time. I don't think we have time to go through all of that. But I built storage for it to remind me that what I need to do is I need to split the wire output. So some of it goes to wire storage and some of it goes to a constructor for making cable. But we'll save that for next time. So this is where we stand today. Now this is kind of like when you're on a roller coaster where you go up the chain lift up to the top of the lift hill, and at that point you're looking down at the drop, and from then on things just get faster and more fun. And I think that's kind of where we're at here, right? As I've got the power, I've got the space, I've done some thinking, I've got some bits moving in here, and so I think at this point at the top of the lift hill, we're about to go down. Oh, I just see there's another limestone node right there. So maybe I'll add to that too. But so anyhow, things are just gonna speed up, and as I keep learning more and more, this whole situation certainly gets more interesting to me, and my options open up. And so just when I think I'm getting a handle on this, they dump a whole bunch more stuff on me. But that's part of the fun. I'm really looking forward to it. So I want to thank you for tuning in and spending some time with me and watching me muddle my way through this. I truly appreciate it, and I hope this finds you and yours in good health, good spirits, and perhaps a touch of good fortune. Cheers.